we're going to continue. Okay, we're going to start back up now. All right. So I'm happy to introduce. Thank you. I'm happy to introduce Gary Hall, who is the chair of the Rent Stabilization Subcommittee of NISBIT. And he and Bruce are going to talk about the effort to get rent stabilization for Santa Maria. So, Gary.
Word dry is very clean. Okay. Thanks everyone for sticking around. Though I do recognize the fact that the biggest, we had a registration list, and I do realize that most of you are from out of Santa Maria. So what I have to talk about is of less significance to you than possibly others. But I'm going to go to what I've prepared and avoid winging too much, if that's okay. Thanks for coming. My name is Gary Hall, and yes, I am the co-chair of the NISBIT Rent Stabilization Subcommittee, along with my co-chair over here, Eileen. I was raised in Missouri, and over the years I've also lived in Kansas, Colorado, and Nevada. I've owned a few homes along the way, but I never even considered mobile home living until I was faced with the outrageous pricing of California. Okay, so I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, can relate to that. In 2014, Nancy and I bought a house in Rancho Buena Vista here in Santa Maria, and I immediately discovered the need for rent stabilization in Santa Maria. It's outrageous. I quickly joined GSO, or GSO, I'm sorry, I said that. And then was elected president of our homeowners association for the next 8 years. In 2017, I got active in the NISBIT Rent Stabilization Initiative. So basically, I'm giving you history that says it's been at this a long time. I was a young man when I started. Look at me now. Now, where'd Sid go? That's all right. No, I don't. No, Jane, it's okay. But I wanted to know, you're telling me that I did this. We had a board of directors meeting. He's still here. We had a board of directors meeting earlier this week. Okay? And they asked me to read the following. We hope that you have enjoyed our conference today and learned something new that will help you as a mobile homeowner. Many helping hands worked diligently to ensure that the conference was a success. There were a few people that went above and beyond. We want to recognize Ann Henderson for her tireless. She was a young woman. That's the planning, coordinating, and managing today's event. He was assisted by Laura. Take a bow next to her. She was assisted by Laura, who's not here now, who lent her extensive IT and Zoom and publishing skills to make much of the documentation possible. Andrew Mayfield, yay Sid, you're here to listen to what you want to say. Responsible for arranging the use of St. Peter's and its facilities while organizing today's food, beverages, and coordinating all the wonderful volunteers and work. We've kind of had a variety of ways of handling questions. suggest that maybe if you do have some, you hold until the end. But if I look up and everybody's got their hands up, I might consider stopping. I recognize, I hope you recognize, that the rent stabilization struggle in Santa Maria has been an uphill battle, to say the least. Way over. And I don't even know if we got to the middle of it. You'll find in the booklets that you're given when you check in, the last page is a little spiel that I wrote and stuck in here so that you can refer to it. I'm not going to read it, but I will point to some key points. In the brief history, that's at the very beginning, I do point out the fact that in 1999, yes, 24 years ago, the City Council of Santa Maria rejected their first opportunity to pass administrative relief. The ordinance was written, the rent control was published, and the City Council rejected it. And then, we just wouldn't give it up. Back in 2018, enforceable rent stabilization was put back on the agenda after, you wouldn't believe all that we had to go through just to get it on the agenda of the City Council. That was in November of 2018. Then, following that, stakeholders were put together, a group was put together, and we proceeded to look at all kinds of proposed revisions that included city staff as well as representatives of the park owners as well as resident representatives. That negotiation or discussion went on for months until suddenly the city decided to stop. And they put together what they call the final version of the enforceable model lease, which they'd like to call EML 2020, which included an enforcement agreement that was prepared without any input from the residents. It was presented to the City Council on November 19, 2019, and over our objections, asking for a lot of changes, they approved Resolution 2019. We didn't give up. Starting in December, after that rejection in November, we were back at it. Our goal remains to provide protection to all Santa Maria mobile home residents presently living in an unregulated rental market where the current model lease program has been ineffective in protecting homeowner equity and maintaining affordable mobile home housing. Fortunately, after months and months and months, June of last year, Councilmember Soto, Escobedo, and Cordero did pass a motion to take a look at the model lease, looking ways to improve it, and to look at alternatives. Since then, we've had 4 stakeholder meetings, one of which included the partners, but I can't announce too much progress. Not without our efforts, particularly led by Bruce Stanton, our attorney over here. But we continue to seem to have the lead in the discussions. And what you see next on that handout is a list of areas that we call our issues. And I'm just going to go through each one briefly. Participation in the model lease has been negligible at best. We have some major parks that have signed the enforcement agreement. The park owners have offered the model lease, but as best we can determine, there's less than 25 homeowners out of the 1,700 spaces in Santa Maria that are even have elected to participate in the model lease. Now, my position is that that's no mistake on their part because it didn't offer anything better than what they already had. Continues to not offer them anything better than what they have. current goal is to increase that participation in parks. We have 16 parks in the city. 14? Depends on which day you look at the list. Now I am talking about inside the city limits, so those will be outside, Sunny Hills, you're outside, Country, outside. So we're talking about inside the city limits. But of those 16 parks or so, only 8 might be participating in the models. So the first thing is to get an improvement in the participation. Not only do we want to improve the model lease, but we want to see that the participation improves as well. One way we think, and this was what was proposed and was quite warmly received by the city, I thought, surprisingly, that one way to get the park owners more in tune with adopting the model lease could be to provide them an option called a mobile home rent, space rent stabilization ordinance. So don't feel obligated to sign up to the model lease. Here's your new rent stabilization ordinance that you're now on. It doesn't exist today, but it's a proposal. And one way to incentivize their participation would be to say the alternative is to be affected as a space. Okay? I like that option, and I'd like to find some way, if yours would just go along with my inclination, to say everybody would have access to the ordinance, but unfortunately that seems not too possible at this juncture, because of what was created and was signed by the park owners who are participating in the enforcement agreement. That lo and behold, from 2019 forward, they've got 10 years. They don't have to worry about any other kind of ordinance for rent stabilization. Why the city offered that, I still don't know. But they did. And many park owners jumped on it. Another problem with the model lease is the fact that a lot of these parks that aren't participants, a lot of the parks that are participants don't know anything about it or how to benefit. Even in our park, we've got people that have offered it, signed it, still don't know what it is, and why they were even offered it. So there's a whole lot of outreach, we want to call it, that should be introduced, led by the city, because it's only from the city's involvement that I believe residents will recognize the significance. We think the realtors need to be educated, but now we're talking about people who are in. The fact that I would guess that the realtors that handle the sales, that most of the mobile homes in San Diego don't know anything about home lease. Don't tell the prospective buyers that there is such a thing. And why would they? Because there's nothing in it for them. Because there's no enforcement. Which takes me to the subject of enforcement. There is no apparent important verification procedure. There are features of the agreement currently that are not in compliance with the law. And we believe that information should be made available to homeowners, and there should be some announced method to follow for reporting violations to the homeowners. An interesting comment, I won't try to quote, but in one of our meetings, we still have representatives of the city not convinced there is a problem, because nobody's been filling out complaint forms at the city. That's, I believe, a short-sighted excuse for not listening to the hundreds of people who have talked to them, the months that have been spent in trying to reach some kind of level of rent stabilization, and then to come out and say, we see no evidence. I'm not thinking, wake up, people. You're on the payroll. If you were an elected official, I'd do everything I could to make sure you weren't. There's an idle thread there. The fourth item or issue that I included in the handout was our fourth issue, and that dealt with economic terms. This one we pushed back. We said that there's an opportunity to make a lot of improvements in the other issues, participation, outreach, and enforcement, before we tangle up over the subject of financial terms. As you can well imagine, the first reaction by the owners to any change of any kind to a model lease that has gone out of its way to protect them, to change any of the terms in the planning issues. We'd like to see some changes. We continue to want to see some changes. And our original stated goal was to adequately protect homeowners from large rent increases and maintain affordable housing while providing the park owner with a fair return. Well, that's still our goal. I hope they understand that. But there's no limit to the amount of resistance we're getting from the park owners on that subject. So we put it on the table in the back, hoping to make some improvements on those other issues before we tackle the financial terms. Okay. According to my notes, this is when I wanted to stop and acknowledge that we have a rent stabilization subcommittee, of which several members are here, and I wanted to recognize them as well because they put in a lot of hours on this subject, and we spend a lot of time on Zoom now, and we used to have meetings. We used to do a lot of stuff, and it's increasing now. As I said, our names are co-chair. Mr. Jensen over by the doors on the committee, Jamie Rodriguez next door, Ron Foss back there by Andrea, along with Andrea, are on the committee. Peggy Breyer is not here today. Laura is on the committee, as is Nancy True. Yes, give me a hand. The good news is this book's not full of things I'm going to say. What it does have in it is the next section. I just want to bring forth something. I'm going to beat you to the question point. That if you had a question, I was going to say, Colin again? Is it Colin again? Lessons learned. Are there any lessons learned? Oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe my list. I'm only going to give you 6 of them. I don't want anyone that's going to pursue this in any form, in any future, in any jurisdiction, to be sure that you have what in the state and Santa Maria are council, and you've got to have at least one, preferably 2 or 3, that act as an advocate for what you're trying to accomplish. If you don't have that, which we didn't have in 2019, clearly we did not have it in 2019, you're doomed. Positive, where's Judith? There's Judith. Judith, I brought our picture. Our picture from the Santa Maria Times. It reads, final term set for the model lease program. It says in the Sun about the same time, this is my favorite, seeking stability. Got lots of good press. And here's my lesson learned. Positive media coverage does not spell success. It does not. You could be on the evening news every night. That doesn't mean anything. And you're dependent on 5 city leaders to vote in favor of what you're trying to accomplish. Holding meetings, and we've had a jillion. Haven't we, Esther? Huh? Does not equal progress. I suggest that the city staff should remain impartial and not side with the owners on almost everything that goes on. This would might give me a little trouble. A legal person is here. I defer all my statements to being approved by the group. Beware of backdoor negotiations between the city and owner. They're going to happen. Don't let them happen. But be aware of the fact that they happen. Have some way to counter them. And my last lesson learned, are you ready? Get ready for it to take a long, long time. Okay? With that, I'd love to have a question that I could push off on Bruce. Please, Steve.
I don't live in Santa Maria, but if I did, being the troublemaker I am, I would like to know how many votes each council member won their council seat by. And if you have enough people living in the mobile home parks to affect change of council people or to work for a council person's opponent who will promise to deal with you folks the right way, I would shove that down their throats or up whatever else they have.
Okay.
What was the question?
I'm going to rephrase the question.
Thank you.
We are in church.
Gary, leave the word "shall" out of it when you.
Okay. No shall? No shall. What we have done in the past and will continue to do in the future is to try to recruit support from either council members or, in the case of the time of election, candidates for council. Okay? We have done that consistently over the years. Our first ice cream social 2017, 2018.
Farther back than that, dear.
Farther back.
Yes.
One
When
time
mayor
it
was
started in
running.
2018. And the whole purpose there was for us to meet the candidates and for the candidates to hear our concerns. So we solicited their support, and by correctly, we got it. In the case of Gloria Soto, who was still on the city council, she was seeking election, and we thought that she was a really fine candidate that took our concerns to heart. She continues to take that position and actually is the leader of the city fathers in our ongoing effort. Okay? So we have accomplished that. And we had a council member who shall remain nameless that finally resigned and went to Montana, and that was a major victory.
Not for Montana.
Not for Montana. She was replaced by a young lady, and I can use her name, Maribel, something. I apologize to her, it's word that I couldn't say her name. She attended our candidate forum. She spoke neutral. She was not anti our efforts, but she has not really been tested yet, and she's an unknown quantity right now. Carlos Escobedo, you'll remember, was elected in 2020, and we went out of our way to recruit Carlos to support what we're doing, and yea, verily, he has done it. Okay, so there's 2 votes that we think we're pretty sure of. Getting the 3rd vote is tough. We have had, in a second, we have had support in 2019 from Councilmember Cordero. He was supportive of the resolution that was, or motion that was passed last year. So we had a 3-2 vote just last year to take a look at all these. There's a big difference in looking at it and actually approving something. Once the details are ironed out. But at least he was open-minded enough to say, yeah, I'll look at that, and I'll favor the motion. So of the 3 that voted positive, those 3 are still on council. So we think we're in pretty good shape. What we're facing right now is we need to get something in front of the council to vote on. Okay? So some replacement, I'm sorry, I'm coming back. Something to replace the current models. Is what we're hoping. Some set of improvements or a full-blown replacement. To follow the intent of the motion. Steve?
Yes, I'm just wondering, I attended some of those meetings, and I got the impression that even if you have 3 people who are on our side for this, they can't vote unless it's on the agenda. And the person responsible for putting it on the agenda doesn't put it on the agenda. It sounds like we got the same problem here they have in Congress.
That's exactly why it took so long. Because I can say that the mayor has never been a supporter.
Right.
The mayor does control the agenda. But we were lucky enough in July of last year to have Councilmember Soto bring up a recommendation, what's the right word? Motion, that they take a look, the motion that we have approved today. She voiced the opinion, and she got agreement from Cordero and Escobedo, and that makes 3, and that's why it got on the agenda. Okay? So it technically is now on the agenda, but it takes a long time to do. Okay?
Then you have to fight to do something bad. Then you still got to fight to do something bad.
Yeah. Once we get something in front of them, then we got to go to work. What else? Don't tell me I'm done. Monique is supposed to be here at 3 o'clock. Where are you? Monique Mobilehome is our state senator, and she is en route. Mr. Stanton?
Yeah, does anybody else have any more questions for me? I'm gonna have to get going and real pretty quickly. I know I talked to other people offline. If not, I'm gonna just say thank you all for coming. Please join GSMOL, spread the good news. Unity and knowledge is power. You have a lot of power if you know how to exercise it, and if you take the time and make the effort. And Anne's an angel. She's been doing this for so many years, and there are others. Gary's a local angel, but they need your support, even if it's just thank you for what you're doing. But get your war chest, raise your funds, and be vigilant. My best to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? Open mic.
Open mic.
Yeah, no, I'm just hold on. Hey, Jamie.
That was when you sign in.
Okay, everybody, while we're waiting for Monique Lamone, we should be here soon. I would just like to tell you one more time about the Legislative Action Team. And the Legislative Action Team is basically you guys. Particularly if you're a GSMOL member, because this is how we are able to pass our bills in the state. This is how we are able to help people learn the process for getting legislation accomplished. And the only way to do it is to have a lot of people all speaking with the same voice. So the idea is to have in each park one person who is called the legislative contact. We call it LC for short. And that person corresponds directly with the chair of the GSMOL Legislative Action Team Committee. And that is the committee that decides upon what bills we will take up with, of course, our lobbyists' recommendation. How do they get to know what sort of bills we need? Where do they get that information? From you. If you have an LC in your park, it's a two-way conduit because your LC will not only bring information from the LAT committee down to you to let you know what you guys need to do to help get bills passed, which usually involves calling up senators and assembly members and encouraging them to vote yes on the bill. But the LCs also report to the lobbyists and to the LAT committee to let them know, hey, these are the things that are going on in our parks. This is what's happening. These are the issues that we face. And these are the kinds of things that we hope that maybe some legislation can be passed. So there are different ways that an LC can be appointed. Normally it's a chapter officer position. If you have a chapter in your park, your LC will be one of your officers. It might be your president, it might be a different officer, or it might be somebody who doesn't have an officer position. But you don't have to have a chapter. Anybody, any GSMOL member in any park can become an LC. And how you would do it is, there's two ways you can do it. You can either contact the person who is the LAT coordinator for Nisbet, if you live in North Santa Barbara County, or you can contact Jamie Rodriguez over there, who's our region manager for GSMOL. If you live anywhere in Santa Barbara or San Luis Obispo County. And I can also appoint LCs. And I know a lot of people who have been LCs and have been fantastic LCs. And I'm looking right at Linda Wilson, Winters back there, who pretty much single-handedly turned her city council 180 degrees.
Yeah.
When I first met Linda, they were totally turning a blind eye to manufactured homeowners in Morro Bay. Not paying any attention, not listening to them. Linda decided, well, I'm going to go down there and I'm going to go to the city council meetings and I'm going to tell them. I'm just going to tell them what's going on in the parks. And I think she goes to pretty much every meeting and she still does it. And as a result of that, a number of issues were solved within her park. And the city has now turned around to the point where they listen to homeowners and pay attention to what's going on. And this all happened because she became the LC for her park, and she learned, well, she already knew pretty much how the legislative process works. And this is how we quite often find our leaders in GSMOL. She's now an associate manager. And she manages Morro Bay and Los Osos. And we hope to be able to get more people involved from those cities. And this is how it begins. And if we don't have people coming up from the parks to take on these positions, then we are not GSMOL. That's basically how it's all done. Linda?
It was because of my going to city council that Don Addis, who is sponsoring a bill now, went to the assembly and now is
take on these positions,
right
then we are not GSMOL. That's right, yeah. I forgot to mention that. Don Addis, who's the assembly member, the new assembly member, who wrote our bill, AB 318 for the MRLPP, went got into the assembly largely because of Linda. We've known each other. And this could happen to you. You could maybe foster someone else who might become a legislator at the state level and go on to author a bill that really helps homeowners. So it comes from, we want it to come from the parks. We want to hear from the parks. We want to know what's going on in the parks. And the way to do it is to have people in the parks that are associated with GSMOL who can tell us what's going on in the parks. And then we can ask them to send out to their members within their park whatever instructions we have from the LAT committee to campaign for the bills. And that's basically how it works. Does anybody have any questions?
She's supposed to be.
That question I can't answer.
Actually, Gary Hall's out there waiting for her.
I'm sorry?
Gary Hall's out there waiting for her. He's their contact person, so hopefully she's still around.
I got it. Laura, I got it.
Yes, go ahead.
Laura,
Wait, I'm sorry, I'll take this gentleman first and then Ron.
Me first?
Yes.
Okay. My situation is we always seem to be fighting with the council rather than the owner. Now, the owner controls the council in many ways, helps re-election and so forth. Now, is there a way that all the renters in one unit and in one park can decide to put all their rent into an escrow, holding out on paying directly to the owner to make him change his mind on renegotiating the lease?
That's more of a Bruce question.
Now, that is like a rebellion. What do union people do? Union people says, we're not coming to work until you pay us what we need to pay.
They'll evict you.
If
you think about it, if you hold your rent, they're gonna,
put it in an escrow, you have an attorney representative.
you're still not paying your rent.
Yes, you are. You're paying it to an escrow. You're paying it to an escrow that's holding this money until they're in compliance with the owner. And then you pay the owner what's in escrow. This is what you do.
Is that legal?
I think that's a Bruce question, but I have asked him before about when people have asked me about things like rent strikes, and he said that's not a good idea.
Well, that's not a rent strike as much as when you put it in an escrow. It's somewhere. We're paying our rent, but we want compliance from the owner in order to work in the negotiation process. Usually, everything that we want done definitely does not happen, but everything the owner wants done definitely comes out. You come together into mutual agreement, rather than the city council never came through. Every time I went to the city council, well, we're still considering it. We've got to talk about it some more.
Yeah, where does the buck stop?
Yeah, exactly. Well, basically, because I need some help on my reelection. Many times, and owners support the reelections. I'm sure you can't tell me they don't. And so, if I'm going to get
There's
reelected,
gotta be a better way though than to rent.
Ma'am,
it's just an idea.
Yes,
I got a text from Laura that Monique is on her way about 3:15, 3:20.
okay, it's 3:15 now.
That's a huge legal can of worms.
Pardon? Yeah, that's a legal issue.
Huge legal can.
When you deal with an escrow company, say, we're paying the rent to an escrow company.
There may not be anyone here touching it.
Otherwise, if they're unreasonable, I see the bulldozers coming.
Well, I'm glad to see you because I'm running out of jokes. Sorry that we lost some of them.
No, it's okay. It is a long day, so I apologize. This is a back-to-back day in North County today, so we're coming from another event and we're making it. But I am Senator Monique Limon. I know that you had a chance to hear from my wonderful colleague, Assemblymember Greg Hart, and he talked to you just a little bit about, the legislature. So I would just say a little bit about me and, some of the work that I've done related to housing. So I've been in the state legislature for 7 years, 4 years in the state assembly. This is my 3rd year in the state senate. And the first 4 years that I served in the legislature, I was on the housing and community development committee. So this is a committee that oversees hundreds of bills in all areas related to housing. And some really big ones, some really small ones. So I've had the chance to vote on a number of issues that have come forward, not just housing altogether, but also as it relates to mobile home park. And I will tell you that, as I think of the role that some of our, mobile home parks play in the state of California, I think, a lot about the fact that one of the biggest issues that California is facing is affordable housing. There is a lack of affordable housing in all 58 counties in the state. We have over 480 cities in this state, and we see that as a very, very big pressing issue. So when I think of manufacturers in mobile home park, I think of the fact that they remain the front lines of what affordable housing means to our communities. And so it's also been very critical from a perspective of kind of values to be able to protect what we do have in place as it relates to mobile home parks and, of course, the support for them. I know that in my time in the legislature, some of the things that I've worked on is really investment of dollars when our budget was better. I started in the legislature when we had a much better budget than what we have for the Department of Housing and Community Development to make that available to some of the parks. All the parks that I have in the district, and I have quite a few, I represent all of Santa Barbara County and over 60% of Ventura County. So I have just under 1 million constituents that I represent, and some of this funding has gone to a number of issues, or a number of projects, at our mobile home parks, including some infrastructure upgrades, but also, just support of the park altogether. Over the last 7 years, we've really dealt quite a bit on the legal issues related to mobile home parks. In 2018, I helped pass the Mobile Home and Residency Law Protection Program through an assembly bill called 3866. And this law was designed to safeguard the most vulnerable mobile home park owners by creating additional way to enforce violations of the mobile home residency law. It also provides an opportunity for park residents to be able to file formal complaints. And so this really came as a result of working and hearing quite a bit from mobile home parks throughout the region that I represent. And now HCD, so this is the state agency, the State Agency of Housing and Community Development, is able to provide information to us as legislators in terms of where we're seeing some of the violations, what types of violations, and we look at that as a way that we can perhaps try to change or update some of the laws in place. The law also allows for the state agency to contract with one or more qualified, experienced legal nonprofits, and so that has been a big piece. Many of the mobile home park residents and constituents that we've come across that have come to our office asking us for help sometimes need legal help. And our state is able, as a state representative, I don't have the ability to provide legal advice or legal help to anyone, but partnering with approved legal nonprofits through HCD has been something that we've been able to do. And so these are just, some of the issues I think that we come across in the 7 years that I've been in the legislature. Absolutely more work needs to be done to protect affordable housing. I think you see that in the form of trying to find areas of funding. You see that in the form of working quite a bit on tenant protections. This was something that during COVID, I was part of a statewide coalition of folks that was trying to figure out what the appropriate state tenant protections were under COVID, considering the times. And so those are some of the issues that we work on at the state level. Now, I will say that I'm being very quick and expedient in terms of what I'm presenting around mobile home parks. We work on a number of issues. So I can talk to you quite a bit about the work that I do on environment, on women's issues, on natural disaster issues, on education and health issues. But this, for me, was something that I knew is very relevant to what you're all dealing with, what you're all seeing. Our office also continues to serve as a resource for all of you. Very often, the bills that come our way are bills that come from issues that our constituents bring to us. We don't have the capacity to write a law for every issue that every constituent brings, but our office does does look quite a bit for patterns and trends. You know, are we seeing residents and constituents deal with the same issue over and over? What has been done historically in terms of the state of California? Can we make some changes? There are ideas and laws that we put forward that are successful and get signed by the governor, and there's ideas that are not. They don't make it all the way. The legislature currently is at the end of session, so we are getting ready to wrap up our legislative year. We work all calendar year, but we spend the legislative year quite a bit in Sacramento, so we are going through some of those laws and protections. I will say that you probably heard many of the housing laws over the last 5 years or so have really focused on building housing, probably more so than kind of maintaining housing. And so part of our role is to try to find that balance to ensure that the people are able to stay in their homes, as well as also dealing with the fact that yes, we do need to think about how to create more homes. And we've also tried very hard to think about not just creating homes at market rate, which is needed, but also affordable and workforce, which are two types of housing that are critically missing all over the state. And so that has been slightly more difficult to do, but something that we still do. So I wanted to kind of share that with you, and I'm happy to take any questions. Again, I'm giving you a very quick summary because I know I'm at the end of your day and you're all tired, but happy to take any questions. California is not short of facing big problems every single day, so we have lots to say. I've spent the last 3 weeks working on, for example, homeowner insurance, and the fact that so many companies are no longer reinsuring some of homeowners, and so I've spent the last few weeks working pretty closely to find a pathway to a solution, or at least a temporary solution, because it's a very, very big issue in this county. So happy to take questions, and thank you, and sorry I'm so fast. Any questions? Yes?
Do you have any feel for the 2 bills that we are sponsoring, 318 and 604, if they're going to make it all the way through?
Well, I 318 and 614, and then
604.
604. So I'm gonna have Carson is gonna give you. I don't, since I am not the author, I don't know the status of them, but we can easily give you the status very quickly. And actually, do you know if it's an AD or SB?
Yeah, they're both on the Senate floor right now.
So they're 80s.
They're 80s.
They're 80s. So we can probably look it up really quickly. Yeah. Oh, Dawn, one of them is Dawn's. It's still alive. I just voted for it, so that's still alive. We have over 1,000 bills, every year, and so and they get recycled. The numbers get recycled. I do not remember every single bill number. But when you tell me the topic, the author, then I'm like, yes, I know which one you're talking about.
So AB 604 Lee, the water utilities,
Lee.
is the other bill that was pushed.
And let me see, So Carson's looking both of those up right now to see the status of that. Any other questions or thoughts? This is an opportunity.
Just a huge thank you.
Yeah, no. So thank you all. You're all like the cream of the crop. You're staying this long just for me. I know a lot of folks had to leave, and Greg was like, "Are you almost here?" I was like, "I haven't done for that." So I really appreciate it. Yes.
I've got to expose my ignorance because I'm a brand new homeowner. I just bought my first home, manufactured home in Arroyo Grande 2 months ago. And I also came late to this meeting, but I understand that there's supposed to be a bill working toward being passed in our state that would enforce rent control in mobile home parks. Where are we at with that? Where does that
So
stand?
a bill that would enforce,
It's a 2-year bill.
it's
Next year we go. That's AB 1035.
Okay, yeah, I heard next year, I heard 2024. Is that looking good, or is it not looking so
So
good?
we can look it up. So a 2-year bill, so our legislative cycle is every 2 years. That's when we recycle all the bills and we do it, right? So this is the first year of the legislative cycle, and so 2024 will be the second year. And when something is made a 2-year bill, it means that it's not gonna get out this year. It's a matter of where it was held. Sometimes the bills are held in the House of Origin. Since this is an AD, the House of Origin would be an assembly. AD stands for Assembly Bill, SB stands for Senate Bill. And so we can give you an update in terms of where it is at. I am no longer on the housing committee, so most of the housing bills that come to me, I don't see until either June or the end of August or early September, depending on the year. And that's because I see those bills once they've gone through committees. Every bill in the legislature goes through about 6 to 8 checkpoints. Some of those checkpoints are policy bills, policy hearings that only focus on the policy, and some of them are fiscal hearings, like appropriations, that only focus on the money aspect of how much it's going to cost and whether or not we would be able to implement it. So when we make bills, 2-year bills, or whenever they stall, it can be in checkpoint 1 through checkpoint 8, and it makes a big difference in terms of how much further the bill has to go. But any of those checkpoints is potentially a stopping place. We want to keep getting them out to make it to the governor's desk. So I wanted to just give that background so folks kind of know, where something about that. All right. Seeing no other questions, enjoy your Saturday. Oh, we have one more, yes. No. So, no, I don't speak French. I took French for 3 years. So my background, I'll tell you a little bit about my background. I was actually born and raised in Santa Barbara County. My parents are immigrants from Mexico. They got the name Monique from a telenovela instead of Monica. So they heard it and they liked it. So that's why I ended up being Monique Limon. But a fun fact, there is a Monique Limon politician in France. She spells her name Limone. And so I oftentimes get emails in French, and I kind of revert it to the other politician in France. So that's the other elective. But yes, that's my background. Very proud to have grown up here, and lived away while I went to school, but this is home to me. The 805 is home.
805.
805.
Well, when it's 102 on the 101, it's time for 805.
There you go. When it's 102 on the 101, it's time for 805. Yes. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for hanging in there. It's been a long day. You've all been here since 9 a.m. So thank you all, and thanks for convening this.
Yeah, because our park was like, no, so you get a flat rate. A flat
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Ann.
Thanks to all the volunteers.
Oh, we're gonna start out.
Okay, so what we have to do first, right now, is on the computer.
them all the